a lot of what had motivated me to learn French and to continue to get better was that when it comes down to it, the more languages that you can speak, it's just the more people that you can talk to, which has kind of just been my motivation for a lot of things in life. I want to know people's stories. I want to know what they think and feel about something, and I want to give them the same. And it's just such a valuable tool to open your mind to other people's perspectives. And that's always been like the core of my motivation to learning a different language, is that I just want to be able to talk to more people. And that's it.
Yeah, it's such a enormous motivator. You work with West African immigrants, right, that speak French?
Yeah, so I work in restaurants, and a unique thing about New York City restaurants, is that there is a huge West African immigrant population, and a lot of them work in these restaurants in positions that you don't normally get to see when you go out to eat. And a lot of these people don't speak English, or speak very little English. And so being in this unique and particular place and time, it was the first opportunity I had to be truly useful with my language skills, which is like, again, another huge motivator, if not the ultimate motivator, which is like to be helpful to someone. And so it brought me a lot of great personal sense of accomplishment and joy to be able to help these people in situations where they needed someone to translate important information, like filling out employment documents, or translating information from HR, or like somebody's paycheck was incorrect, he was missing hours on his paycheck, and helping him get paid what he was supposed to be paid, and things like that. Or it was not an application that I had anticipated when learning French, but you remember that these languages are, like French and Spanish, the language of not just one country. There's huge diasporas and cultures and accents and slang, etc. So that was definitely one of the most rewarding aspects of having learned French, something that I would have never anticipated, I don't know, when I was 7 years old. But really glad that I did have that skill eventually. Back a few years ago, I went to Europe, and I volunteered in some refugee camps. And there were a lot of French-speaking countries and citizens that would come through them. But I spent the bulk of my time in Calais, which is in the north of France. And there's a refugee camp there called the Jungle that at its height had tens of thousands of people across dozens of different cultures and countries and communities. And it was a very renegade affair. There are, institutions like Doctors Without Borders that are there to help set up infrastructure, but they're also just, and very much so needed, a lot of people like me that had the resources, the time, and in the area that just showed up and was like, how can I help? And so I met a lot of people and got to know their stories of, being able to speak French was gratifying for that experience, to learn about what motivates people to make that journey from their country to come here and to live in squalor. These conditions I've seen better refugee camps in parts of the Middle East than I have in Europe. And this is France. How can you have people living in the mud? This is France. Yeah. But then here we are. And people, I've met a young kid from Tunisia who left because he was gay and wasn't going to be accepted, things like that. I met a young kid from Iran who, I didn't speak his language, but he left because he had like a public relationship with a girl that was not his wife. And so the police threatened him and he left.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, but when I was in France and in this refugee camp, I did translating for people like amongst the French municipality in Calais that were in charge of, resources for this camp. And then also just amongst other people in the camp that spoke French with others that did not. I went to the hospital with somebody who spoke Kurdish, and there was like a long chain of translators where like the doctor's French. So I translated from French into English, and then this guy here English and translated into Kurdish, and like really wild stuff. So,
Yeah, she goes to the hospital saying, "Yeah, I've got this pain in my thigh, and it's all bruised up, and I don't know what's going on with it." And by the time you get through the chain, it's something like, "Yeah, she says that she ate the ass out of a dead horse, and we don't know why she did that, right?" You know?
but yeah, so that's in those situations, like working in restaurants and then having been able to volunteer overseas, having that tool in my tool belt again was extremely gratifying to feel useful, but also let me talk to people in all of these different situations from all these different backgrounds, to understand what motivates people. And when people come from such difficult environments, all the, your motivations suddenly become universal. So
The more you can get out, and sometimes it's not even necessary. Yes, it helps to go to those places, but you can go to those places and not learn anything.
right.
What really helps is to just get to know the people from there. And
Yeah.
I think both are necessary, because if the only people you talk to are the people who migrated to your country, and they might have
Mhm.
many different reasons for migrating there, but when you ask them, you've got a pool of migrants to go by, and I think I don't think. I'm in a position where I always have to wonder if the
Uh-huh.
information I'm getting about where they came from is as accurate as it could be, because I imagine I'm getting it
Right.
perhaps a skewed perspective, because I'm only talking to one kind of group of people that are from there. Whereas if I went
Mhm.
there, I might talk to other people that have very different perspectives, and that too is very interesting. I remember once when I first kind of started becoming interested in Mexico, and people I worked with would always talk about how wonderful Mexico was. No, Mexico is just, es tan hermoso México, como el pueblo de donde vengo es lo más hermoso que. And they just talk about it, and I was like, well, why are you here? I mean, you're very nostalgic of Mexico. What are you doing here? And they would say, well, you don't understand. I said, well, it's very clear that I don't understand. That's why I'm asking. I said, you can't make a living there in Mexico. You can't make a life there. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to downplay at all what this person is saying. I have no idea what his life is like. The only thing I can respond is that, well, maybe that's right. I said, but half of my American friends say the same about the United States, that I can't make a life here anymore. I can't make any money here anymore. It's a story
Yeah.
that I hear that's kind of relative in different places you go. The only thing is that people from the U.S., they can't go to Canada and get paid $35 an hour to work at McDonald's. So everybody just stays here in the United States, which we would. Would you not go to Canada and work at McDonald's?
Honestly, in my situation right now, yeah, I would go anywhere.
Yeah.